how do I celebrate the Passover myself? So the most important thing to remember is you're doing this in remembrance of Yeshua. To teach your children to honor what he's done for us, to have communion, okay? So Passover is linked to communion, right? Let me show you guys something. Okay, this is the Hebrew word for Passover, Pesach. So it's the sacrifice of the Passover involving communion meal, okay? That's where we get communion from. The picture of communion is breaking bread with Yeshua. The bread is a symbol of the word. The bread is, there's a table in the tabernacle or the temple called the table of showbread, where the priests, the Israelites, had a loaf of bread, each representing them. So sitting at a table and breaking bread is this picture of having communion with each other and having communion with the Most High God. His Sabbath days are moed. They're days where he wants you to meet with him. He wants you to break bread with him. It's divine appointments, right? And so we just do our best to honor that in the best way that our human brains can do it, okay? So I abhor you to not get legalistic about any of this stuff. Do not get strange and think you have to do anything perfectly. It's about understanding who Yeshua is and drawing near to the shadow pictures so that you can get a deeper insight into what he did for us, okay? It's a way of glorifying the word and glorifying Yeshua and glorifying our Heavenly Father and glorifying all that they've done, right? The whole picture. So for me, when I keep the Passover, when I remember the Passover, I don't like to say keep the Passover because we're not slaughtering a new lamb. Yeshua's our Passover lamb. We're not slaughtering a new lamb in Jerusalem, right? We're not putting blood on our doors. Please don't do that, right? What we are doing is we're understanding that these things were shadows to point us to Yeshua and to teach us about the process of salvation. If you go through the Exodus story, it will teach you about the process of salvation. They're saved from Egypt, saved by grace through faith. Then they go into the wilderness, right? And Abba doesn't take them to the place where they might encounter warfare right away when they enter the wilderness. He takes them the easy direction. That's why they take the long route, because if they went the other way, they would encounter warfare right away, and they weren't ready for that, right? So he gently takes them to the banks of the Red Sea, and then he has them cross over the Red Sea. That's a picture of our baptism, right? So the picture of the Exodus is a picture of our walk with Yeshua as well. So all of these things are teaching us about our sanctification process, our deliverance process, all of the things that we're going through, okay? So we can, and I think that's probably why the waters have been so muddied by the enemy, because they don't want us to have this full picture. Because once we have this full picture, then we stop debating about denominations and all this stuff, and we realize that all of his doctrine is good and exciting, and he has things to show each and every one of us in every moment, right? Okay, so now to the point, okay? How do I do the Passover? So as a family, we go outside and we take olive oil and we just mark our door. And if I have children with me, like friends' children or anybody that's doing it with us, we would cut out cardboard paper in red and just mark the door, just as a way of teaching them. It's a teaching thing. It's not it's not a weird witchcraft thing. It's like, this is what they did, and we're teaching them, okay? So we do that and we say a prayer outside. We usually blow shofar, and then we come inside before dusk, okay? And we're doing all of this to teach the children. We're doing all of this to create memories and to learn the scriptures, okay? So the other part of the commandment is to eat the Passover with your loins girded and your sandals on your feet and your staff in your hand, okay? That is a picture of being ready to go, being ready to Exodus, okay? So we could take that literally. If you wanted to dress up with your loins girded, that just means that let me show you. Okay, this is how you would gird your loins. And of course, it's from the illustrated guide to the art of manliness, okay? So just know that this is how we develop the art of manliness. All right, now we gird our loins, which basically means you're ready to go to battle, right? You're ready to go. You're like, okay, I got my staff in my hand, I'm ready to go. Sandals on my feet. It's that picture of expectation. You're waiting to go in expectation to Exodus, Egypt, right? The day of the Passover, the first day of Passover, is also the first day of unleavened bread. So at that time, you're supposed to remove all the leaven from your house, and that's a picture of removing sin, false doctrine, all the nonsense from your house. If you have stuff, laying around that should probably have gone, a while ago, just get it out of your house, right? Have a book burning party, whatever floats your boat, okay? So that's, and you also would want to get rid of the physical leaven, like your yeast and your baking soda. And that's just to remind you that you're getting rid of the leaven from your house, which is a picture of the spiritual leaven that gets baked into our word study, okay? Our study of the word. The bread is a symbol of the word, right? It's also to remind us that Yeshua is our unleavened sacrifice. You have no leaven products in your house for 7 days, right? The feast lasts for 7 days. The first day of the Passover is a rest day. You do not work. So from that dusk, when we come inside the house at dusk, until the next day at dusk, we don't work. Okay? It's the Passover. It's a day of feasting. And we should just do family time. We do scriptures, we do walks, we do whatever. Okay? So that's a day of rest. And yes, I do take my child out of school for that day. And I do make her stay home. Because for us, that is a Sabbath, holy, set apart day. And it really leaves an impression on your children to do things like that, because they know that we're different, we're set apart. We don't do the Xmas day, we do these things, and they're very set apart and they're very much in our history. They're very much part of us, okay? The Passover feast that you have, so you mark your door, come inside. The Passover feast that you have would be, you can do lamb if you want to, but you're not cooking a whole lamb. It's not a lamb sacrifice, okay? You can do bitter herbs. You're supposed to eat bitter herbs. That's the commandment. So you do like a bitter herb salad or have some parsley, and you eat of the unleavened bread. So the unleavened bread you eat for that entire week. And this is kind of like the unleavened bread part of it, for me, is the most important picture that you really want to meditate on, because that's that idea of communion and Yeshua, and like that communion dinner with Yeshua, right? That you are partaking of his sacrifice. And in 1 Corinthians, I think it's 11, Paul talks about this, how we don't want to partake of the sacrifice of Yeshua and what he did for us, and then not check our hearts, not check our homes, not check our doctrines. We really want to humble ourselves and make sure that we are removing the leaven. You can make unleavened bread, or you can buy it and just look up matzah. That's how you buy unleavened bread. A lot of stores have it this time of year, depending on your location. But to make it is very simple. It's just flour, salt, and oil, and then bake it in the oven. Roll it really flat and bake it in the oven. I have a recipe in my feast book. So you eat and you have at least some unleavened bread throughout the week, and you avoid all leaven throughout the week. So that would be your beer. You would avoid beer. You'd avoid leavened products. Just watch for yeast and leaven and stuff, right? That's also really good. I always think that the Bible has commands that teach us spiritually, but they also cleanse and heal us physically. There's a reason that he has all these commands in the Bible, and I truly believe that these things heal us. So removing the leaven and that yeast from your life for a week actually will kill the candida in your body. So a lot of people have an overgrowth of candida. They have an overgrowth of yeast in their body. So when you do that for a week every year, you're actually killing that yeast in your body. So it's a detox thing as well, which I think is really amazing that his scriptures, you know, he spoke and the word created, right? He created with his words, with his voice. And so everything that he spoke is part of creation, right? And his commands teach us how his creation works. So it works at the spiritual level, but then it also works at the physical level. It's all interconnected. I don't believe it's separate in any ways. Then after that, you have the Feast of First Fruits, which would be on the day after the Sabbath that week, which would be Sunday, okay? So that's the Feast of First Fruits. That's his resurrection day. That is not a day of no work, but it is a feast day. It is a day where you gather. It's a day where you wave the first fruits offering. And there's a lot of deep pictures in that we could go through as well. And I'll do that in another video.